Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is Reverend Sheryl Butler, and this is Journey Road Ministries, where we seek to do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with our God. So we're going to start out with a song today. This is music written, words and music by a woman who is known as simply as Peace Pilgrim. And I'll be talking about her a bit later.
I am not lonesome nor apart, that you must think low there. I am the all emerged in all. Behold me everywhere. I am the morning zephyr soft, a skipping o'er the lea. I am the music of the brook that flows unto the sea. I am the kisses of the sun. I am the tears of rain. I am the welcome breath of spring that brings new life again. I am the sprouting of a seed, the budding of a flower. I am the beauty that you see, unfolding every hour. I am the singing of the birds, the rustling of the leaves. I am the holy force of life in everything that breathes. I am the thrill of harmony you feel but cannot tell. I am the firm unchanging law that worketh all things well. I am the light that never fails, the power that never dies. I am the still small voice within that bids the soul arise. I am the fruit of highest thought. I am the iron rod that strengthens and supports the whole. I am what men call God.
So that was Peace Pilgrim's musical answer to what is God. So now we're going to do a reading from the Gospel. From the Gospel according to Mark, chapter 6, verses 1 through 13. He left that place and came to his hometown, and his disciples followed him. On the Sabbath, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were astounded. They said, "Where did this man get all of this? What is this wisdom that he has given to him? What deeds of power are being done by his hands? Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, and brother of James and Joseph? and Judas and Simon, and not his sisters here with us? And they took offense at him. Then Jesus said to them, prophets are not without honor, except in their hometown, among their own kin, and in their own house. And he could do no deed of power there, except that he lay hands on a few sick people and cured them. And he was amazed at their unbelief. Then he went about among the villages teaching. He called the 12 and began to send them out 2 by 2, and gave them authority over the unclean spirits. He ordered them to take nothing for their journey except a staff, no bread, no bag, no money in their belts, but to wear sandals and not to put on 2 tunics. He said to them, wherever you enter a house, stay there until you leave the place. If any place will not welcome you, and they refuse to hear from you as you leave, shake off the dust that is on your feet as a testimony against them. So they went out and proclaimed that all should repent. They cast out many demons and anointed with oil many who were sick and cured them. Thus ends the reading of the gospel. So when we consider the scriptures, and it's, I think one of the unfortunate things that happened with, particularly with Protestant religion, our understanding of what Jesus taught, or how we look at these scriptures, is trying to take all these stories as literal. And we do that, we lose so much of the message and what we can learn, being limited with with words, and not being able to think about it and dig deeper. That will help our inner spiritual growth. So what I mentioned earlier, so I played the song by Pilgrim, because whenever I read this scripture, I think about peace, Pilgrim, and how, in a way, I guess she took these very literally, because she started out in 1953, on January 1st, leading the Rose Parade, and started a pilgrimage, a walk on foot for peace. And she didn't take anything with her. All she had was this tunic she wore. She had no money. All she possessed, she had with us, her clothes and whatever could fit in her small pockets. So she walked until offered shelter, and she fasted until offered food. If you could imagine living like that. And she always, would find a place to stay. Sometimes it might have been a park. And she never missed maybe 3 or 4 meals in a row. And she did that from 1953 until she ironically died in a car accident in 1981. She had become well, a lot of people wanted her to come speak. She spoke at a lot of churches and colleges, wherever people would invite her. And so in order to make her speaking engagements, she would accept bribes. So I'm going to let peace really talk for us today. And I would suggest, if you want to learn more, you can find a lot of videos by her on YouTube, and go to her her friends put together a website after her death called peacepilgrim.org, and you can get a book. So we have the Peace Pilgrim book, which is a collection of her writings that her friends put together after her death. And this is the little pamphlet she would carry with her, the steps toward inner peace. And all of these are given at no charge because Peace Pilgrim didn't think truth should be sold. So I'm going to let you listen to, this was a lecture that she gave in 1979 to a college class, and then will give us something to think about in our process of spiritual growth.
Of course, the situation in the world around us is always a reflection of the collective inner situation. And so I would like to draw for you a graph illustrating human potential. Now, first, I will draw the life stably governed by the self-centered nature, then the life which is a struggle between the self-centered nature and the nature centered in the good of the whole, which is the psychological growing up, and then the life which is stably governed by the nature which is centered in the good of the whole. So, I will begin by drawing a straight line representing the life governed by the self-centered nature. Now, there is struggle in that area of life because you see, body, mind, and emotions are instruments. Now, they can be used by the self-centered nature or by the nature centered in the good of the whole, but the self-centered nature never fully controls body, mind, and emotions. In fact, it is itself controlled by the wishes for comfort and convenience on the part of the body, by the demands of the mind, and by the outbursts of the emotions. So here you have a struggle between body, mind, and emotions and the self-centered nature, which uses them to a certain extent without ever being fully able to control them. In this area of life, you can do the physical, mental, and emotional growing up. Not only that, you can get an occasional confirmation from the higher nature when you touch some truth from the outside, as I did on the Golden Rule when I was still in grammar school. You can also get an occasional direct perception from the higher nature, as I did when I was 16 and a senior in high school. At that time, I went around asking everyone who mentioned God in my presence, what is God? Because I was anxious to find out something about the nature of God. But I got no answer. I didn't give up because I knew intellectually that originally it must have meant something. So I pondered deeply upon it. I went to bed and slept over it, and in the morning from the inside, I had my answer. Now, I realize that your life is very much governed by your early trainings at this point in your life, but there are still some times when you can get either confirmations from the higher nature or direct perceptions from the higher nature. Now, if you're going to begin the psychological growing up, you come to the point where you feel completely willing, without any reservations, to leave that self-centered life, which I accent. And then you go into a direct struggle between the two natures with the two different viewpoints. So now there are hills and valleys in your life, lots of hills and valleys. This struggle can be more or less stormy. Mine was about medium. And some think of it as an ascending experience, with each hilltop becoming a little bit higher than the last hilltop. Let me express this struggle in the words of a college student. She pointed to this struggle I had drawn here, and she said, I know exactly what you mean by it because I'm in it. One time, all I think about is, I want a new dress. I want a new pair of shoes. And the next minute I'm thinking, what's the matter with me? A lot of people in this world have no shoes. Why should I be thinking about such superficial things? Once self-centered and once centered in the good of the whole is what that struggle is really all about. Then, if you keep on going, you come to the point where you rise high enough in consciousness to look at the entire universe through the eyes of the higher nature, which I accent. That's a wonderful experience. It's called the peak experience by some of the scientists. Some of the religious people call it the illumination experience. It's a feeling of complete and absolute oneness with all creation. Now, I knew I was one with all fellow human beings before I got there. But now I felt a kinship with the rest of creation, the creatures that walk the earth, the growing things of the earth, the air, the water, the earth itself. You would never be a polluter after that. You have a different attitude towards your environment. And most wonderful of all, a oneness with that which permeates all and binds all together and gives life to all. Well, you still slip in and out of this wonderful experience. And then you get on to the plateaus. Now, you are in harmony most of the time, and yet there are times when you still do slip out of harmony. And finally, you succeed in changing your life, or bringing your life into harmony, or finding inner peace, which I also accent. Now you have come through the inner growth pattern. You discover now that learning and growing does not cease. The struggle is over, but the learning and growing continues harmoniously without struggle. And it was at this point in my life that my pilgrimage began. I would not have been ready for it before. Now, coming through this inner growth pattern means not only bringing your life into harmony with the laws which govern this universe, which are the same for all of us, it also means finding and fitting into your special place in the life pattern which is unique for every human being. This is the self-centered nature. This does not know your job in the life pattern. This is the nature centered in the good of the whole. This does know your job in the life pattern. It just needs to be awakened. Now, the self-centered nature is partly conscious and partly subconscious. And into the subconscious part of the self-centered nature go all of your trainings from little child on. And it's usually a hodgepodge of things which will lead to harmony and things which will not lead to harmony, and even, in some cases, sets of opposites. And yet, these things govern your life, unless they are uprooted, which is a difficult thing to do, but of course it can be done.
So, Peace Pilgrim was an unusual person. And I know there are many others that have had similar experiences. She did not grow up in the religious group. I think her family might have belonged to a church, and that was just really a lot more common when she was a child. But she just discovered her experience. It came from an inside, as she said. She started asking the question, and she just went for a long walk, and the answer came to her, oh God. And it just, was kind of the beginning of her journey. And as she noted, and the spiritual growth is a process which takes some effort on our part. And as she talked about the journey on this spiritual, we call emotional, psychological growth, we engage in these struggles in life. And this is where, if we read our the Christian scriptures, or any of the religious texts, I think they all have the same goal, and people misuse them in a similar way. But I really think these things we call scriptures, they are there to help us to answer that question of what is God, and to grow into that person that we are. Peace Pilgrim was so amazing because she just saw the good in everyone. As she said, no matter the person and however terrible they might be, there's a spark of good within us, in everyone. And for me, I get some direction and insight through our Christian scriptures, also the Hebrew. And one of the nice, things when we have, as a Christian, and this could be true of whatever religion you might follow, it gives us a common place, a common ground of understanding, and a place of sharing. So when we read these stories, where Jesus is, of course, he's sending his disciples out, although they went in pairs, and not to take anything with them. Most of us are not in that place. And Peace Pilgrim talked about, that higher self, and recognizing what our purpose in life is. And basically where Howard Thurman talked about, doing what is, doing our passion, where our passion meets the needs of the world. And that can take a while to get there. And as you show, there's there's that period of great struggle, and where you hit the highs and the lows. And I know I went through that struggle in my life, which brought me away from a more say, orthodox understanding of what Christianity, much of Christianity teaches. Certainly not all. It's definitely a problem to take any religion, and of course Christianity is one single thing. That's why there's over 39,000 denominations of Christianity. And she also mentioned that feeling at one, and how she always had that connection to understand that oneness with people, but to grow to feel that oneness with all of creation. When we can get there, we have such a greater respect for everything. And as she said, if you feel got connected to the planet, we wouldn't pollute. We do a lot of things differently. But basically, if we talk about, and she walked for peace, understanding that the peace has to start within us, and that goes out to the common good. That the whole is what is important, and when we get there, it's no longer just about me. It's about our common community, and how we can make this world better. And it involves being in service. So in this spiritual growing, we can't get anywhere if we're going to sit around and contemplate our navel. We have to go out during this time and being of service to others. And that's where our growth really occurs. And I so at our conversation today, well, first, what do the scriptures speak to you, and where do you see your spiritual journey and your growth has been happening? Now, I know Mary is having trouble with hearing the audio, but I know I can hear her. So, you have any thoughts, Mary?
Well, actually, I had a lot of thoughts. Going back to contemplating one's belly button, my father taught me that word. It's omphaloskepsis, but it's actually a spiritual practice to ground ourselves. And I think that's where we have to understand we can't do anything or be anything unless we're spiritually grounded. And we saw that with Pilgrim and her 25,000-mile odometer, and all that she had to get to the point in her life, which was actually quite late, that she was actually grounded enough to not have a common ground to live on, but to be able to walk away from that and still be grounded.
I think the other thing, as we consider, is we're always growing, always changing. So I am not the same person I was certainly 30 years ago or 20 years ago, or even a year ago, especially a year ago. I mean, this last year had all kinds of potential for growth. When when these life changes, I think it takes these struggles to help us get to the next level. So often I think at least I like to avoid any confrontations or difficult things. We have to call someone with information we don't want to give or we don't want to hear. And I know I will tend to procrastinate and put things off. But when we do that, we're avoiding opportunity of growth. Just like when we have people in our life that they're like sandpaper to us, they kind of piss us off, or well, they bring out, for me, they bring out the worst of me. And so that tells me, well, there's a place to grow, to get to a place where we don't need to judge, but to be able to accept people as they are. It's no easy task. And I always think of what Dorothy Day, who started the Catholic Workers movement, and she said, where I can only love others. I can only love God in as much as I can love the person I like least. And that's really a challenge. But this is where we really see if we've had any growth, is how do we respond to the people that just piss us off. Yeah. So we, it's a continuing thing. But if we accept the challenge and learn, we do, get to that place where we're continuing to learning and grow without so much of the struggle in life. I'm far off from being that feeling that oneness with everything that peace pilgrims seem to do. I still find myself, worrying about things like money. I get irritated with people. Sometimes behave badly, and I'll be honest, sometimes I want to. So, but to have these goals, and this is what, again, the scriptures help me learn and see areas of growth. So we need to look at these stories in the Bible as stories that we need to struggle with, and we're supposed to think and struggle with these kind of two natures in us. And it says the story about the two wolves, and which one is stronger? Well, it's the one you feed. And to know that we basically create the world around us. If we're thinking really negative thoughts all the time, then we're going to have a very negative life experience. If we're thinking positive and positive things about the world around us, then we have a positive experience. And I learned, because for a long time I suffered from really severe depressions, which I have not in a long time. But I don't think the negative things like I used to, through some spiritual tools to change that in my life. Learning that if I don't grab on to the negative and don't let it take hold. And Peace Pilgrim talked about, these things we have to uproot, and it's not an easy thing, but certainly possible. So, anything you want to add to that, Mary?
Yes, I did also suffer with depression, and I occasionally have short bouts, but I simply address it and realize it comes mostly not from an external experience, but how I'm describing it to myself. For instance, COVID really was a really, really, really difficult for a lot of people, even if we weren't directly affected, even if we didn't have friends that got it. It changed our social interactions. It changed how we did things. It slowed life down. It impacted our business quite a bit. But then I just thought of all of the blessings that possibly inadvertently came out of it. We've learned that we aren't having to live in three-dimensional boxes with three-dimensional people. We've learned to go beyond the limitations of physical space, of being able to make deep connections with people possibly we've never even met. And the world, in a rather contrary fashion, after being totally shrunk by COVID, has expanded exponentially. And I hope we can hold on to the possibly unintended blessings of this over a year in isolation.
Yes, I'll tell you, it's nice to starting to be able to meet with people and touch people again. This has been such a difficult year for so many. So I think unless you have something to add, Mary, I think we'll just wrap this up.
I'm good.
Okay, well, thanks. All right, yes. So this year, I know we're going to have many more gatherings. And if you're gathering to celebrate tomorrow, the 4th of July, try not to blow too much up, but be safe. And I encourage you again to check out some of Peace Pilgrim's writings. And she has a really interesting story. So like I said, now if you go to peacepilgrim.org, you can get videos and books and other information at no charge. So anyway, thank you all for joining us. And if you were happen upon us later, have a most blessed weekend celebration, and we'll see y'all next week. Bye.